started to have a tubular heart that contracts rhythmically, but they don't have chambers. In the case of when vertebrates came into the picture, it's for the first time appear a closed vascular system. So within vertebrates, we have fishes that they have 2 chambers, we have amphibians that they have 2 atriums and 1 ventricle, and only reptiles, birds, and mammals, they have a 4-chamber heart. In the case of birds and mammals, they are the only animals that have a complete septation of the 4 chambers. The advantage of this is that the size and the activities that the animals could perform. So moving towards heart development in mammals, this is, maybe you have seen some, I don't know if everybody went through biology classes here, a little bit about embryonic development, where this represents the gastrulation, part of the gastrulation, that is a group of movements that will give rise in the embryo to the 3 embryonic germ layers. That is, the ectoderm, the mesoderm, and the endoderm. From these 3 layers, all the derivatives in the embryo will come from. Well, it has colors, I don't know if you can see from the back, but the blue is the ectoderm, the red is the mesoderm, and the yellow is the endoderm. Specifically, during this movement, what happened with the mesoderm, I will focus on the mesoderm because it's the progenitor for the cardiac mesoderm. So, the mesoderm, especially the lateral plate mesoderm in this area, they contain somatic mesoderm and splanchnic mesoderm. From the somatic mesoderm, there will be, the masses will come from, for example, and some others as well, some other derivatives. But the splanchnic mesoderm is the one that contains the original cardiac progenitor cells. So after some movements during embryonic development, very early embryonic development, the heart will form, starting, this is let's say a heart tube, that is the first step, where there is already 3 layers. There is a myocardium, there is an endocardium, and there is an epicardium, that is the outer layer. Now let's move to a little bit more detail of the morphogenesis of the mouse heart. So, in the case of the mouse, the gestational period is 20 to 21 days. So basically, this morphogenetic process, it happens in all the mammals, but of course will depend on the timing, because the human and the mouse will have different times for formation of different portions. So in the mouse heart, these cardiac progenitor cells, they migrate from the primitive streak. The primitive streak is like a hole in the embryo where the gastrulation comes from, starts from that point. And these cardiac progenitor cells will migrate to this size, and then they will form this cardiac crescent. The cardiac crescent is what I could mention like a cardiac mesoderm. So this cardiac crescent at 7.5 of development, days of development, it will, after this, they are together here, forming like the U, and then at 8 days of development, this cardiac crescent will fuse at the midline of the embryo here, and it will form a heart tube. This heart tube already has an arterial pole and a venous pole. This is a lateral view of this embryo, and this is at 8.5 of development, where you can see that the future chambers are already defined. The right ventricle, the left ventricle, the right atrium, and the left atrium. But the difference comparing this stage and the later one is that still they are not in the right position. This heart is going to turn to the right as these arrows follow these arrows, and the result is 9.5 days, where the location of these chambers, right, the ventricle, left ventricle, and the atrium, they are in the final position. However, the heart in this stage is still a tube, and there is an outflow tract that is also forming. The outflow tract later on is going to be the aorta and the pulmonary trunk. So concomitant with this, the trabecula start to grow. That you see this wave tissue here in green in the ventricle walls. The cardiac cushions as well. The cardiac cushion is this kind of spongy tissues here in orange. They are going to give rise to the heart valves. That we have 4. We have the pulmonary valve, the aortic valve, mitral valve, and from the neural tube in the dorsal part of the embryo, and they will influence specifically the outflow tract of the heart. They have a critical role for the separation of the aorta and the pulmonary trunk, as well as the remodeling of the aortic valves, and the aortic valve and pulmonary valve. Finally, at 14.5 days of development, there is the 4 chambers. There are 4 chambers, and fully septation occur already, and the heart is complete. And there is a little more growing, remodeling of the valves as well, but I would say that at this point we are able to evaluate if there is any pathology. So the contributors to the heart are the heart field and the cardiac nerve cells. This heart field is nothing more than that cardiac mesoderm that comes from the splenic mesoderm. There is a first heart field and a second heart field that I'll explain in the next slide, and the cardiac nerve cells that come from the neural tube. So the heart field, first I will define what is a field in developmental biology. It's a group of cells that can receive signaling from surrounding tissue, and they have the developmental potency to become something else. So this is what happens with the cardiac crescent. This cardiac crescent is then becomes, like when during the development, this is more in detail specifically for the cardiac mesoderm, the primary and secondary heart field is called primary and secondary according to the order of migration, but this mesoderm will migrate into the heart, contributing to different structures as you see at 10.5. The colors are showing what comes from what. So here is the lateral view, where you see that the secondary heart field is more in the back of the heart, and the first heart field is more like the heart tube itself. And then later on, there is a rationalization of the heart. So finally, at 10.5 of development, you can see already that the secondary heart field gave rise to the outflow tract and the right ventricle, and the primary heart field made the atriums and the left ventricle. The first heart field as well is involved in the endocardial lineage, is the origin from the endocardial lineage that will form the valves and the coronary vasculature as well. So another contribution is from the cardiac nerve cells. Here is in the picture, this is the neural tube, and this is how they migrate through the pharyngeal arches to the truncus arteriosus, and this area is what is going to be the outflow tract. So different signaling pathways are required for the migration of the cells and the proper differentiation, and there is a very close interaction between cardiac nerve cells and secondary heart field. Because as I mentioned before, the outflow tract is coming from a secondary heart field. So secondary heart field and neural cells, very close interaction for the proper outflow tract formation. Now moving to the molecular regulation of cardiac development. First I will define something that is a developmental process, that it happens in some steps that happens in every developmental process. That is a specification, a determination, a proliferation, and differentiation. So anything that is going through morphogenesis will go through this step in order to get the cells more committed to form whatever is going to be in the future. So the further you move here towards from specification to in this direction to differentiation, then the more committed are the cells to become something, and the less possibilities to go back to the previous step, the cell stage. In the case of the cardiac progenitor cells, there are some markers as that are gene expressions. That is MESP1, MESP2, FGF8, and some others as well. So they will, this is the specification will happen and promoted by signals from neighboring tissues. In the case of the heart, one of them is the cannulator endoderm. There are some signaling pathways like fibrotic factors, bone morphogenic protein, sonic heptol, and canonical ring signaling. I put the plus. The plus means that this specification is positively regulated by fibrotic factors. And in the case of minus before the word is that there is a negatively, there's a from the canonical wing signaling on the specification process. All these signaling factors that I mentioned are typical in developmental biology as well. Fibrillar growth factor, bone morphogenic protein, sonic headshot, canonical wing signaling, non-canonical wing signaling, and some others that we mentioned here. So when we move to determination, there is a gene that is NKX2.5 that will mark which cell has the potential to become hard. Besides this important gene, also GATA4 will influence these cells, also the neural cells, and some others like the cell response factor and MEN2C. And there is a control as well from the specification factors to the determination factor. It's always everything like it's kind of a little bit of overlapping of the stages, and very fine regulation occurs between them. The proliferation is mainly regulated by fibrillar growth factors, and the neural cells are controlling that these fibrillar growth factors are not too much or not too little. Canonical wing signaling as well, and for notch, for example, signaling will control this canonical wing. T-box transcription factors as well. They are involved in proliferation, specifically EBX1. It's one of the genes that we study in the lab, and sonic headshot as well. For differentiation, it's mainly a balance between fibrillar growth factors and bone morphogenic protein. Every factor that is more involved in proliferation will be downregulated when the cells are differentiated, and everything from before as well. But there is no single factor that will influence the morphogenesis of the heart. It's just a combination of things that, with very fine regulation, in one phase something could control that, but if it is not a very good control, the effect will appear later in development. On top of that, also the microRNAs are very important for cardiac development, and there are some specific pathways that are involved, for example, retinoic acid, for the anterior-posterior axis of the heart, and also for the left and right asymmetry, because it's not a symmetric organ. So now moving to the programs of the heart, this cartoon shows what we are trying to add with our research. The capital letters in color, they represent some of the congenital heart defects that are known already. Let's say, for example, a PTA, that is a persistent truncus arteriosus. This PTA occurs in the aortic tract, and this is happening when the pulmonary trunk and the aorta, they don't separate well. So instead of having two tubes in the aortic tract, these either human fetus or the mouse embryo, they have one tube as an aortic tract. So what is known already, for example, TBX1 and GATA4, there are genes that are very, very likely involved in that. So with our research, we are trying to discover new genes and contribute to this big network of genes that control the different parts of the development of the heart and the lineages as well. So now we enter in the research project which title is the Mouse and Human Tracker Sensitive for Heart Morphogenesis. So, and the syndrome that we study in the lab is called 22q11 deletion syndrome. This syndrome is, as the name says, is a deletion in the chromosome 22. So these patients, they are hemizygous for the genes that are in the deleted region, because they have only one copy, one mother or father that is functional, and the other one it doesn't exist. This syndrome occurs 1 in 4,000 live births. 50% of them, they have craniofacial defects. As you can see here, these are 2 kids at 4 weeks old, and here is 4 years old. Certain characteristics are already known, and for us, what is more important is that 60% of them they have cardiac defects, and it's in what we focus in our research. They also have, later on in life, they have schizophrenia schizophrenia and some other mental disorders, as well as ear problems. But the most common thing is the cardiac defect. So this is a genome browser image that it shows the chromosome 22, human chromosome 22. And these are the genes, how they are located in the chromosome 22. So this is just to show you that there is, like, I said before that there's like 60 genes deleted, but the most important one so far, it has been described as TBX1 and CRACO. And I have different projects running, especially one for TBX1, another one for CRACO, but CRACO is the one that I chose to present today. So this cartoon shows, again, that the representation of the chromosome 22, where you can see here TBX1, and you can see CRACO here. These are the location in the chromosome. This is low copy repeat, A, B, C, D. And these are the type of deletions that are known already in these patients. It can be A to B deletion, which happens in 8% of the patients, and it contains TBX1. A to C, 1%, that also contains TBX1. 90% of the patients, they have a 3 megabase deletion, which is the biggest one, that goes from A to B, and it contains TBX1 and CRACO genes, besides the rest that are here, right, that I didn't put, but they exist in the deletion. And another thing that happens is an atypical deletion, that is the BD deletion, going from B to D. And it is called a 22q11 atypical deletion, something like that. It's not defined because new patients are coming, and we are also our collaborators at Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, they manage many of these patients, and we are increasing and trying to combine all together, but not so many have been described so far. So I will introduce you to the CRAC family adapters. This adapter, the name is chicken tumor virus N10, regulator of kinase. The genes is mainly 2 genes, is CRAC1, CRAC2, and CRAC3. They are spliced, alternative splice form, and CRACO is another gene. They are vigorously expressed, and they are conserved from nematode vertebrates. As you see here, this is just an example, like for the FGF8 pathway, where this is the tyrosine kinase receptor, and the CRACO is an adapter here, and it will be an intermediate point between the receptor and the downstream effector, that in this case is the ERK1 and 2 that you may know, or MAP kinases. These proteins are involved in cell differentiation, adhesion, transformation, proliferation, migration, apoptosis, and many new papers came out with relating the CRAC family with cancer metastasis and invasion. So as I mentioned, they are part of the growth factors, mainly the signaling pathways like PDGF, EGF, insulin, humoral growth factor, TGF, VGF, etc. So what is the developmental biology approach that we take in the lab to predict the cellular and molecular cause of the congenital heart disease? So on this side, you see that the cartoon is a completely fully developed heart with all, like in the mouse, as I mentioned before, it's 14.5 days of development. And on this side is a picture of an embryo. Well, it's written here, probably you don't see, but it's a 9.5 days of development. They have a mark here where the cardiac progenitor cells are, that is the back of the heart, and here is the heart tube. What you see in black, well, black actually is blue, dark blue, is a stain for TBX1 that is not relevant for today, but it's an insight with the mRNA staining. So what we do is to connect these two pictures. So I do evaluation of the morphology of the heart in later stages, either 14 point, could be 13 as well, but there are some things that are not completely formed at that stage. So let's say 13.5 days and older should be. I do the morphology morphological evaluation, I do the diagnosis of the heart, and then, according to what we see, with the defects that we see, we try to think back in development, and what time, what cell lineage, what time and space during the development could have been compromised to produce that defect that we see later. And finally, we try to think about what the gene network that is behind that defect. So, as I mentioned before, what we use the mouse molecular genetics. So our classical mouse lines are as followed here. We have 3 different types of alleles available. In one, the first one represents CRACO wild type, or CRACO, like the normal expression of the gene, is CRACO plus. We have another one that is called CRACO neo, where there is a modification here with this yellow and the neo cassette here. And in this case, this allele will express less CRACO, but not null, like no zero expression like the null allele. That is the third case, where it's a CRACO minus. So we can play with these alleles and combine them as we want, so that to have a certain dosage of the gene in the embryo. So our project outline is our overall study design, I would say, towards integration of human and mouse. As I mentioned before as well, we have access to patient data. So in this case, we have a DNA sample from patients that they have the AB deletion, including TBX1 and CRACO. We have echocardiography from patients. We have a cardiac diagnosis, and with these DNA samples, we can do run genetic tests or genetic techniques as well. So in this case, was for a whole exome sequencing, and from here we get candidate genes. On the other side, we have the mouse model. So for this allelic series that I generated was doing a mouse genetic process between the alleles that I mentioned before. So we have the headline that is the plus minus. They don't have the effect. They can live normally with animals, as well as the neo over plus. They can also live normally. So if we cross everything with everything as I could, then I had 6 combinations that I show in the next slide. So I did the isolation of the embryonic heart. In this case, the study was at 15.5 days. So that was the last point that I can get them alive. And also they are fully developed, the heart is fully developed, so I can evaluate the whole morphogenesis. We have the cardiac phenotype, and also we do gene expression studies. So we communicate with, say, the human people in the lab and the mouse people. We work together in order to get human congenital candidate genes. Sometimes genes come from here, and I test it here, or sometimes I get genes here, and I give it to the human people so they can also test what I found. So this is again like the chromosome 22, and this is the patient that we are working with. In this case, it's BD15, BD division patient, that is this amount. Previously, some other patients that have been described, and each one of these patients, and that is a publication. So imagine, this is pretty valuable to have 15 new ones that kindly the people, like our collaborators in Philadelphia, gave this information to us, that is the cardiac diagnosis. And I just want to mention here that each one of these, half of them, they have normal echocardiography, and the other half, they have different kind of heart defects. This is a fetal sonogram or echocardiography. So I will not go through this now because I will mention later when I show the mouse, our mouse model, but basically they have BSD, PTA, GOF, URB, all these effects, they are recapitulated in our mouse model. It's actually the same. mentioned, this is the combination of all the alleles as many as it was possible. So we have the Krakow plus plus, this is the wild type. We have Krakow neo over plus. We have Krakow het, heterozygous, plus minus. We have Krakow neo neo, neo minus, and minus minus. The first three, plus plus, neo plus, and plus minus, they serve as control because they don't have card effects. The gene dosage is approximately like this. It's decreasing in this direction, while the severity of the cardiac phenotype is increasing in this direction. Less Krakow, more severe. And this is a qPCR experiment where we show the mRNA for Krakow in the wild type, in the het, and in the knockout, as well the wild type, neo plus, neo neo, and neo minus. So our results, some years ago there was a link between Krakow and Nevertheless cells, specifically and only for Nevertheless cells, but they have described only one phenotype, and that was all in the Krakow knockout, but we have expanded those sample target effects, and we found more defects that are also seen in patients, like for example the Tarashio-Falot. Let's say this is for the Tarashio-Falot, this is the percentage, and these are the three allelic combination of genotypes that give some phenotype. The rest are controls. So for the Tarashio-Falot, it happened to be more frequent in the neo minus and in the knockout. It's the red column. So here is the picture. I'm not sure if everybody can see from the back, but here is the normal. This is a wild type plus animal, and this is a knockout in lower panel. So this is a normal situation where the aorta is here, and here is the pulmonary trunk. This is the right ventricle, and this is further down in the section in the heart, where you can see the right ventricle, the left ventricle here, and this is the ventricular septum. So what is happening with the Tarashio-Falot is that the aortic valve and the pulmonary valve are at the same level where it shouldn't happen. What is called also overriding aorta. There is a pulmonary stenosis. That is, as you see, this pulmonary trunk here is like narrow, and it's not like this one that is open. Another thing that is associated with the Tarashio-Falot is opening between the right ventricle and the left ventricle. This is called ventricular septum defect. Another thing that happens is that because of the defect, since the blood is mixed, then this right ventricle becomes thicker. So there is a hypertrophic right ventricle when the myocardial wall should be like this in the one. And this is a human QF. We also have some pictures of the electrocardiography from our collaborators, and here is a VSD. It's not very easy to see, but there is a connection here, believe me, between the right and the left ventricle. So we have also seen another defect is the lower outlet right ventricle. That is the yellow column, where it is happens more often in the neo minus combination. And here is one of the controls that is the het compared to the neo minus. And you see here is the aorta, this is the pulmonary trunk, the right ventricle. And what is happening in the lower outlet right ventricle is that the two arteries are connected to the right ventricle, the aorta and the pulmonary trunk. This is also associated with the VSD, that is the ventricular septum defect. Another thing that happens is the overriding aorta. There is another kind of defect that we have seen, this is here in the green columns, is more often in the neo-neo. It's a little bit less severe thing, and this is the wild type compared to a neo-neo animal. And this is an overriding aorta is when this is the normal situation, but this is the aorta, and here is a little bit on the right ventricle, and it's also associated with the ventricular septum defect. And in this case also it has cushion defect that the valves, the tricuspid valve and the mitral valve, they are like a hypertrophy. Sometimes it's secondary, sometimes not. also seen as a reticular cushion defect that is dosage sensitive. And for this, the evaluation is about like if it is underdeveloped or if it is hypertrophic. This is an example of hypertrophic cushions in the knockout compared to the wild type. You see here how this is blunted valves like this. And the underdeveloped cushion happens in the neo-neo and neo-minus, but hypertrophy more like in the neo-neo as a secondary defect, but also as a primary defect in the knockout. We have also observed higher frequency of muscle defect in the capo knockout. So this is an example of very sick heart. This is a wild type again, and this is a knockout, where you can see here how the muscle is really messed up compared to the control. It also has some cushion defect in this area. So the thickness of the myocardial wall is one of the things that I'm evaluating, and it happens, it's more like defective in the neo-minus and the knockout compared to the neo-neo. And in the case of trabeculation, that is, for example, here, if you compare the neo-close as a control, this is the trabeculation in the right ventricle, and this is how it could be, or sometimes happens in the neo-neo, where there is less trabeculation, and in this case it's also associated with the ventricular septum defect. This trabeculation thing is more often in the neo-neo compared to the rest, and it's something that is also less severe. So I say that we try to go for the explanation, from the molecular and cellular explanation of what is the base for the defect that we see. So we do gene expression studies. In this case, this is an embryo that, taking into account all the information that I showed before with the phenotype, we try to think about which stage could be a good one to choose and to do some gene expression studies. Or it could be immunohistochemistry, and well, any kind of molecular or cellular biology technique. So this is an embryo that is 10.5 days of development, and in green, you can see here is the tube, the heart tube, and this is the back of the heart of the cardiac progenitor cells. Now this reduces during development because 9.5, 10.5 is going to be less, and the progenitors are going to be part of the heart, and they are not going to be there anymore.